Welcome to Beyond Headlines with NGULLIE. Poila zamana dedo manu sapabra numurile taikan kot giri mure itu jagate dabai dibo koi. Sapabra numuria to kisim ase. Kunba do shikari kuria homoi mari dia jongole janwarra murai dia itu kan nishna bi ase pani de giri na muri ja aro kunba do nijor la jiwon loi loa manura mari dia ena muria khando bosti phitor de loi nani noelebi ghor phitor de loi nani itu kando kote gire mure itula jaga de dabai de. Now if they died by suicide, they were buried where they died. If they died by drowning, they were buried on the banks of the water body. If they were torn by animals, they were buried in the forest. Those who died these kinds of deaths were never brought into the village or the house, and that's how the Naga tradition used to be. Now, I don't know if this tradition is still practiced, especially in the corners, but even recently in the 80s and the 90s, people who died by suicide, for example, were never allowed burial in church-run cemeteries. Anyhow, just felt to narrate the story for a GK. Nagala Sanskriti de itu hisab enagabi koi na ishe kina pra murilebi jaga ekta de dawai dibole lage kot hoilebi aro muria manuke dabai dia piche de itu laga jaga to nahilabo lage itula jaga nolobole lage ki karni halibole bi bad itu moigan boundary holebi gaspi na halibole lage nu iku nolobol lage aru itu kote halia piche de itu la jaga to ekdom nolobol lage nihilabol lage aru hudai manu muria khando kina holebi mati de taila nijor ekta rukhabole dababole rakhi di na dibi koi taila jaga de nohelebi ekta jaga saigina mati de dawai dibol lage muria khando bahar de narakhibole lage nohelebi kunba alag jaga de narakhibole ko ena la sanskriti kotha de aina is de moigan itula bisas to kot pra hoi ena nokorile muria manu laga atma do shanti aro rukhya napai koi tala atma do birai thage koi muria bichidebi tai shanti napai koi tai bahar de nohelebi kunba jaga dur de nohelebi tala muria jaga de na rakhishile na dabai shikoile to mati de dabai dia piche de itu taila jaga pai loise itula manula atma do aram se shanti se jai koi tai ena la moigan khisai na koi na ise dunia de alag manu ase sanskriti bi alag bishya ase kot hoile bi dunia de moigan sob itu bisas to ekta nishna duri na hi ase. That's why the dead are always brought to a resting place of their own, because to bury them is to give them rest. I think almost every Naga tribe has folklores and stories about rest for the souls of those who have passed on. Our songs, our folklores and practices do refer to elements of rest and the quality of the journey of the person's afterlife. One of these practices is the philosophy, the practice and the act of burial, how it holds sacred significance in regard to the well-being of the person's soul. Now, ancient Naga people honored taboos much more than we do now. They honored the demands of ritualism which their animist beliefs demanded. Even in the modern times, we honor and fulfill the demands of Christian ritualism according to Christian beliefs. Alag Naga jama bishya se holibi sob muria aro atma laga khisa do ekta duri na hi moigan amikhan la sanskriti de khisa aro gana de itubi ekta duri na ahi kwanishna mati de damai dia piche de itu manula atma do aram shanti pai itu sob manura itu ekta duri and this belief is at the heart of an exceptionally unique endeavor initiative that a group of well-meaning Naga individuals have been pursuing for a long time now. These individuals are working tirelessly to bring back the remains of ancient Naga individuals from the United Kingdom. Ekta chutu Naga jama laga jama ra taihan ektam dangor kam kuri jaya se tiang itu ase itu Naga manula jama chutu ekta bra Poela Murija Naga Manula Teng Hat Hardi Sharti Saman foreign Naga Jagabra Nagalende Ani Bule Kushish Kuri Jayase United Kingdom para Nagaland de aniti ule. Ajidu itu laga kotha koribo. The Pitt Rivers Museum in England is said to have approximately 41 Naga human remains. Now these remains are primarily skulls, according to a Reuters article. Now these human remains along with other Naga artifacts were collected during the British colonial period. Actually, it's said to be part of a larger collection of approximately 6,550 items from Nagaland. In 2020, though, the museum removed all Naga human remains from public display as part of an ethical review that the museum was undertaking during the time. England de jaga ekta Oxford koina jaga ekta ase. Itu laga kahar de Oxford la kahar de Pitt Rivers Museum koina ekta ase. हमने भी जानिबो म्यूजियम तो एकता पूरा लिखा जानकारी बिसरा आरो अतीत आरो इतिहास बिसरा बोले जगह आसे तो इतु लगा जगह दे पिट रिवर्स म्यूजियम सोलिस निशना मुरिया नागा मनु लगा हाथ माथा हार्डी शार्डी बंशो हार्डी राखी ना आसे क्वा इतु पहला मुरिया नागा मनु मुरिया खान तो इतु खान दो आजिगाली आजिगाली ला नागा मानु मुरिया खान नहै इतु तो पहला जमाना नागा मानु पुरा माथा काटा काटी कुरिया दम दे आरो पाथर साथर बुजा कुरिया दम दे लागा मुरिया खान ला आसी इतु आजिगाली ला नय थेंग हाथ हार्डी शार्डी माथा गोबरी आही आसी को आसे तो ब्रिटिश राज आरो पहला अमेरिकन मिशनरी नागा मानु लोदे आहिया माजोदे मुरिया लागा सामान खान आसे ना को आसे इतु म्यूजियम दे राखी गेना थागिया नागा मानुला हार्डी खान सामान खान बंशो हार्डी सामान खान बेशिभाग दो माथा खोबरी खाने आसे कोइसे स्कल्स दूसरा हार्डी बंशो सामान भी आसे होले भी बेशिभाग तो खोबरी खाने आसे को आसे इतु हार्डी बंशो सामान खान तो ब्रिटिश मानु कोन समाज लगा हवा पानी पुरिए लिखे इतुवन कोन अलग अलग मानु आरो अलग अलग संस्कृति पुरिए Tai Khanbra England loi jai koishi tudo. Now these Naga remains along with other Naga artifacts were collected during the British colonial period in Nagaland or the Naga Hills during the time. They are believed to have been collected for educational and research purposes, collected for their novelty value and of course collected for anthropological studies and maybe even to be preserved as archival assets. Actually, it is said to be part of a larger collection of approximately 6,550 items from the Naga region during those time. In 2020, the museum removed all Naga human remains from public display as part of an ethical review that the museum was undertaking. There are approximately 41 Naga human remains, primarily skulls. The other Naga artifacts, which the museum also holds, are about I read 178 objects. Some of these contain or may contain human hair. That's what I read. Pitt Rivers Museum de Muria Naga Manu la Khopri Khan Manu kan ne dekhai hoi jaise takani du bon gori dishe manu ge ne dekha hoi jaise. According to information, the museum's decision to remove the Naga remains was part of a broader ethical review that focused on human remains. These colonial collections are believed to have posed questions of ethics and cultural propriety, especially in the context of modern ideological and philosophical climates. Another reason was that there are ongoing efforts to repatriate the Naga ancestral remains from the museum to their homeland, that is now present in Nagaland. Itu muri jan Naga manu laga hardi mongso saman khando Pitt Rivers Museum pra manu ke dekha bole bon gori dishe ta to ne dekha hoi jaise. কি হইছে কইলে ইতু মানু মুরিয়া লাগা সামান মানু কে দেখাই দিয়া দো মন কথা মন ভাবনা ভাল নোহা লা কথা দে সময় দে আই যাইছে ethical concerns আৰু ইতু পৰে নাগো মানু পৰা ইতু সামান খান নাগালেন্ড সব লৈ যাব কাৰণে তাইখান কাম লাগাদার সে যায় আছে ইতু কাৰণে ইতু হাৰ্ডি মংস সামান খান মানুকে নে দেখা হৈ যাইছে ইতু Most of you must be aware that by now the Naga delegation visited Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford recently to reclaim the remains of the Naga individuals. The team was in the United Kingdom for talks with the museum seeking the repatriation of the remains. According to the Naga delegation, a declaration was made at a lecture theatre of the Oxford University Museum of Natural History. The declaration was that the repatriation process was toward the healing and wholeness of the Naga people. Amne khan kunba do huni pai news te huni pai thai jola Naga jama ektabra United Kingdom UK de itu museum lo de kotha koi ase ta khan muri jala manu saman khan Nagaland de loi ani ule itu mangi ase ami manu khan bra itu museum lo de koishe itu muri ja manu la hardi khan khobri khan tang la saman khan ani ule koshish kuri thakya do itu karni ase Naga manu la mansik aro bhavna atma pura bunai di bole bhal bunai di bole itu karni kuri ase dusra karni noi itu karni muri ja chapra saman khan mangya ase tai khan itu Naga manu ta de UK de ja manu ra tai khan ke koi dishe museum ke koi dishe. Now, the Naga team also expressed solidarity with other indigenous peoples from across the world who might be seeking a similar journey of repatriation here. Similarly, the Museum Association confirmed that leaders of Pitt Rivers Museum, which is part of the University of Oxford, had met with the Naga group. Another topic that was discussed was about the future care of the museum's wider Naga collections. लिखा हिसाब तो दुनिया दे सबसे बिशी नागा मनु लागा सामान दो पिट रिवर्स म्यूजियम दे आसे कोइशे ताते बिशी रखी ना आसे कोइशे दूसरा जगह दे कुन भी नाय कोइशे किना कुरीना नागा मनु मुरिया लागा हार्डी घोबरी इमान दूर जगह यूनाइटेड किंगडम दे पहुंचीशे मखानी टू लोप साइज सब से आगे ते मुरिया नागा मनु लागा छापरा सामान इटू म्यूजियम दे दिया तो जॉन हेनरी हटन गोइना ताइब्रा पोथाइजी को आसे पोइला आगे दे हटन नो एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट आसे कोइसे एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट माने ताइखान समाज आरो मानुला समाज खान बुरिया लिखा मानु आरो जानकारी समाज ला जानकारी थाकिया खान दो एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट माते इटु ऊपर दे जॉन हेनरी हटन दो ब्रिटिश सरकारी ला डांगर साब एकता थाकिसे itu taibra murija naga manula saman aro itu kan sob museum logode tai pothaise tai dishe na ko ase itu kan do theng hat hardi shardi matha khobri hi no hai alag alag dusra saman kapra hatier kan bishi ase ko ase itula museum de Bid Rivers Museum is said to hold the largest collection of Naga materials in the world. Most of these were collected by colonial administrators in the early 20th century. The first Naga ancestral human remains were said to have been donated to the museum more than a century ago by John Henry Hutton. Now, Mr. Hutton was an English-born anthropologist and an officer in the Indian Civil Service during the British rule. Now, skulls and other body parts were frequently transported from Asia, Africa, and other regions of the world. They were transported to Great Britain too. Besides Great Britain, these objects and materials were transported to other former colonial powers as trophies for trading, for display, or academic study. Now, in regard to the Naga remains, historians say that some of the remains were taken by colonial officers from burial grounds and battlefields in the Naga regions. Now, during those times, the Naga tribes of the region had been practicing headhunting for centuries. Poila zamana de murija manu laga matha kopri khan thenghat nohelebi gao laga hardi shardi khan do Asia or Africa pra loina Great Britain de pothai di deisha kunba do museum de manu khan ke dekhawole kunba do ghor de sabole rakhiwole itu gondo aro kunba do pura likha karni school aro college de loi jaise na kwa. Anthropologist Dolly Kikon had been leading from the front to bring the Naga remains back to Nagaland. She said the journey and the process was not just a visit for the Naga delegation. It is in fact an act of healing, of returning sovereign decision making and reclaiming the dignity of our ancestors and the Naga people. That's what she said. Kikondo Shikak ase, teacher, Shikak. Taido, University of California, United States, de Shikai. According to a statement issued by the Forum for Naga Reconciliation, the delegation was invited by the Pitt Rivers Museum for a meeting between June 8th and the 10th. The whole idea was to discuss the future of the Naga ancestral remains that the museum holds in its collection. Dolly Kikon and I talked about this earlier. We had a conversation here at the channel too. It was during the time that she and her team were advocating the repatriation of the Naga remains by addressing the media and meeting people in Nagaland. So far, the advocacy has led to the Naga team meeting with the museum's authorities, which is a huge breakthrough. They have been working at this endeavor for about 5 years now, and things do look like there is a movement forward in this regard. However, we just might have to wait a little while. The director of the museum, Laura von Breckhoven, said that timing of the return of the Naga remains is still uncertain due to a lot of progressive work involved there. Progressive, just like in India. The museum is also said to be in talks with other groups to enable more items to be returned. That's what the news house Reuters said. Just the previous month, the skulls of about 19 African Americans were returned to New Orleans from Germany, where they had been sent for study by scientists, proponents of a now discredited belief that skull shape reveals mental abilities, according to a Reuters report. Itiadakno Muria Manu Muriala, Naga Manula Muria Chabra, Hardikan, Nagaland, Anibule Kamdo, Parija Nishna, Rasta Kulija Nishna, Sayaze, Sahisabdo, Hobonishna. Olivi Rasta Kulilebi, Murija Naga Manukanla, Chapra, Aro Saman, Aro Hardikan, Nagalande, Ponchibule, Noelive, Anibule, all of the time lagivo. Kile mani do Sorkari la Kambi Bisha, the museum laga director Laura van Broekhoven Parakoisha. Olop homoe na holevi deri lagibon nishna hoyase itu kotha do kile mani itu do ekta sati noile khandan gor majode kotha koria no itu do sorkari la sorkari kotha bi ase itu ani time lobo ena ko ase to itu sob sapa hwa pichide murija saman khan murija manula saman khan sob ani ule pariwo. The Pitt Rivers Museum houses a vast and diverse collection of around 600,000 objects, or roughly about 6 lakh objects. This includes ethnographic and archaeological artifacts from around the world. Here's a more detailed look at some of the notable collections. Ethnographic artifacts. Naga collection. The museum holds probably the largest collection of Naga objects outside of Nagaland. The collection is approximated to be about 6,500 items, including everyday objects such as, or materials such as clothing, tools, and musical instruments, and of course the human remains of Naga persons. The museum's collection spans continents and cultures. It features items such as even the Japanese snow masks, fishing boat models, and even a witch in the bottle from Sussex. Now, there are also photographs. The museum has an extensive collection of 19th and early 20th century photographs, manuscripts, of course. The museum also houses manuscript collections, including the papers of James Philip Mills and John Henry Hutton himself, who were colonial administrators involved in collecting Naga artifacts. Further, archaeological artifacts at the museum include firearms, ancient Egyptian shaptis, and mummified cats. Again, the museum also holds a number of one of the weirdest, strangest objects in the tribal world, the shrunken heads, or tanta. As some of you may be aware, shrunken heads are the result of a process by which the Yavaro peoples of the Amazon forest shrink human or animal heads. These heads are real heads of animals or peoples. They are shrunken for ritual trophy or even trading purposes. The Pitt Rivers Museum previously displayed the shrunken heads, but these were also removed from public display in 2020 due to concerns about how they were presented or being presented and perceived. Many of the objects, especially those related to the Naga collection, were acquired during the colonial period. naga manula saman hi nohoy Pitt Rivers Museum de dunia de sopra dusra saman jama kuri kina sop jama guna hi ase hisab ra itu laga museum de 3 lakh nishna saman ase na ko ase age de ko nishna sop se naga manu laga saman hi bishi ase na itu la jaga de sop milai gina naga manula saman khan do 6000 nishna 6000 upor nishna na ase ko ase kabra bi ase hatir shatir khan bi sop ase aro gana bajala saman aro itu tak bi ase ko ase ko nishna muri jala naga manula saman khan bi ni itu bi kothai ta laga se uli itu upor de dusra moi ko nishna kapra khan bi ase aro gana bajala hatir shatir ki alag moi khan hudai cholai thaka bishi ase na ko ase aro khisaikta dusra desh bra dusra matha khan bi ini ani gina museum de ase itu naga klai noi oli dusra manu gan itu naga manu la noi itu khan do Amazon laga jungle ekta thakia bosti kishim manu khan la matha gan ase itu naga manu la matha klai noi itu do Amazon forest de Latin America ko ina ekta desh ase to tai khan do manula matha noili bi janwar la matha loina tai khan ekdam chutu bunai de tai khan ki dawai shawai aro hat cholai na manula matha khan hoile bi janwar la matha khan hoile bi ekdam chutu bunai na tai khan itu cholai tu ki karni dukan shudan koriule hoile bi aro tai khan gorde rakhiule saman sala saman hoile bi tai khan itugan matha khan loina chutu guri de to itugan la matha bi bishya je koi je tula museum de English brado shrunken heads koi aro Amazon laga bosti manu khan la basha brado itu do tancha koi tancha itula matha khan man chutu hole bi to no hosa manu la matha je aro janwar hosala janwar la matha je ni tai khan da weki ki hali na chutu bonai dia tai mani ase tai khan moi khan naga manu bra kina nijor manu laga chabra ro saman loi gina Nagaland de ahibule kam kuri ase kushish kuri ase itu nishna manu khan bi tai khan la saman thagia gan tai khan la manu muri na hardi itu thagia gan bi tai khan bi loi jabole ena kushish kuriya la kwa huni ase. Thank you for watching Hornbill TV. I'm NGULLIE. See you next time.